When two music powerhouses clash live on television, it makes for a riveting and unforgettable moment. That's exactly what happened when Kelly Clarkson's interview with Shania Twain took a completely unexpected turn, leaving everyone in the studio speechless. The audience was buzzing with excitement as Kelly Clarkson, with her signature warm smile, welcomed her guest, Shania Twain. The expectation was a light-hearted interview filled with laughter and nostalgic stories. Shania Kelly began, her voice filled with genuine enthusiasm. "Having you here is honestly like a dream come true for me. Your music shaped so much of my childhood, and I know it did the same for millions of people." Shania responded politely, but her posture was slightly guarded. "That's very kind of you to say, Kelly. I've always admired your voice, and your success on American Idol certainly paved the way for so many artists." Kelly continued, "I realized we've never really had a proper conversation about the music industry and how it's changed since both of our careers started. I mean, you dominated the 90s, and then I came along in the early 2000s. A flicker of something crossed Shania's face, but she maintained her composure. "Yes, the industry has definitely evolved quite a bit since then." Sensing an opportunity, Kelly leaned forward, her interviewer instincts kicking in. "I remember when I was just starting out, there were all these rumors and stories floating around about established artists and how they felt about newcomers. I'm not sure I follow what you're getting at," Shania replied, her tone noticeably cooler. The audience began to sense a shift in the atmosphere. Instead of backing away, Kelly pressed on. "Well, I just mean that there were always stories about established artists feeling threatened by new talent. I'm sure you heard some of those same stories." Shania's jaw tightened. "Kelly, I think maybe we should focus on the music rather than industry gossip that happened over 20 years ago?" Of course," Kelly said quickly, but her expression suggested she wasn't ready to drop the subject. "I just think it's interesting how perceptions can be so different from reality. Like, I remember reading an article where someone, I won't say who, but someone supposedly said that reality TV winners would never have real staying power in country music." The studio fell completely silent. The camera operators seemed to freeze, as they realized they might be witnessing something unprecedented. "Are you referring to something specific, Kelly? Or are we just making general observations about unnamed sources and old tabloid stories?" Shania's eyes narrowed. "I'm just saying that looking back now, it's funny how wrong some of those predictions turned out to be." Kelly responded, her smile faltering. "Yes, here we are," Shania replied, her voice now carrying an undeniable edge. The tension in the room was palpable. Kelly, instead of changing direction, appeared to be doubling down. "I guess what I'm curious about is whether you ever felt like the industry was trying to pit women against each other, especially during transition periods when new artists were coming up and established artists were, well, trying to maintain their relevance." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Shania sat back in her chair, studying Kelly's face with an intensity that made several audience members shift uncomfortably. "Maintain their relevance," Shania repeated slowly, as if she were tasting each word. "That's an interesting way to phrase it, Kelly." "I don't mean it in a negative way at all," Kelly said, but she seemed to have crossed a line. "I just think it's fascinating how the music industry works, and you think I was concerned about maintaining my relevance when you won American Idol?" Shania said, a statement more than a question. The audience was completely silent now. Kelly's producers were likely frantic, trying to figure out whether to cut to commercial or let this play out. "I never said that," Kelly replied, her defensive tone betraying her. "No, you didn't say it directly," Shania acknowledged, "but you've been dancing around something since this interview started, and I think both of us know what that something is." Kelly took a deep breath. Instead of diffusing the situation, She made a choice that would change the entire trajectory of the interview. Look, Shania, I think we're both adults here, and we both know that there were some comments made back then that maybe weren't the most supportive of new artists coming into country music through unconventional paths. Shania's expression hardened. Comments that I supposedly made? I'm not accusing you of anything, Kelly said quickly. I'm just acknowledging that there were reports, and maybe this is a chance to clear the air about whatever happened back then. The studio felt like it was holding its collective breath. Both host and guest seemed unwilling to back down. Shania leaned forward, her eyes locked on Kelly's. You know what, Kelly? Let's clear the air. You obviously have something you want to say to me, so why don't you just say it instead of hiding behind vague references to unnamed sources and old tabloid stories? Kelly's smile vanished. Fine. There was an interview you did with Country Weekly where you said that artists who came from reality television shows were taking shortcuts and that real country artists paid their dues the hard way. You specifically mentioned that winners from singing competitions would never understand the struggle that authentic country musicians went through. The audience gasped. Shania didn't flinch. And you think that was about you? I think the timing was pretty convenient, Kelly shot back, her voice rising slightly. This was right after I won American Idol. Right when I was trying to make the transition into country music. And suddenly, there's Shania Twain telling the world that people like me don't deserve to be taken seriously. People like you, Shania repeated, dripping with incredulity. Kelly, you won the biggest singing competition in America. You had instant fame, instant recognition, a record deal handed to you on a silver platter. How exactly is that the same struggle that artists who spent years playing honky-tonks and writing songs in Nashville went through? Kelly's cheeks flushed. So, you're saying I didn't earn my success? You're saying that because I won a competition, everything that came after was just given to me? I'm saying that your path was different, Shania replied coldly. And at the time, I thought it was important to acknowledge that difference. Country music has always been about authenticity, about real stories from real people who lived real struggles. And you think my struggles weren't real? Kelly said, her voice now carrying a tremor of anger. You think that growing up poor in Texas, working multiple jobs to support my family, dealing with an absent father, none of that was real enough for your standards of authentic country music? Shania paused for a moment. Instead of softening, she doubled down. Your personal struggles were real, Kelly, but your path to success in the music industry was manufactured. There's a difference. The studio audience was completely transfixed. This was no longer an interview. It was a full-blown confrontation between two of the biggest names in music, happening live on daytime television. Kelly stood up abruptly. Manufactured? That's what you really think of me in my career, isn't it? That everything I've accomplished, every song I've written, every performance I've given, it's all just manufactured success because I happened to win a singing competition when I was 20 years old? Shania remained seated, her posture rigid. I think the industry changed, and not necessarily for the better. Reality television created a shortcut to fame that bypassed the traditional process of developing as an artist. That's not a personal attack on you. It's an observation about the industry. Oh, it's absolutely a personal attack, Kelly fired back, her voice echoing through the studio. You don't get to hide behind industry observations. When you specifically called out reality show winners in that interview, you weren't talking about the industry in general. You were talking about me. If the shoe fits, Shania said quietly, her words cutting through the sound system. The audience gasped again, murmuring in shock. Kelly's producers were visibly panicking, unsure whether to intervene or let the historic confrontation play out? Kelly's hands were trembling now, whether from anger or adrenaline. If the shoe fits, are you kidding me right now? Shania, I have been nothing but respectful to you and your legacy since I started in this business. I have praised your music. I have acknowledged your influence. I have never said a single negative word about you in any interview or public forum. And I appreciate that, Shania replied, though her tone suggested she didn't appreciate it much at all. Do you? Because right now, it feels like you've been waiting for 20 years to tell me exactly what you think of my career and my place in country music. Is that what this is? Have you been sitting on this resentment all this time, just waiting for the right moment to let me know that you think I'm a fraud? Shania finally stood up as well, the two women now facing each other across the small interview space. I don't think you're a fraud, Kelly. I think you're talented. But I also think that talent and authenticity aren't the same thing. And the industry lost something important when it started prioritizing television personalities over genuine country artists. Television personalities, Kelly repeated, her voice shaking with barely controlled fury. Is that what you think I am? A television personality who happened to stumble into a music career? I think you're a pop star who tried to rebrand herself as country when it was convenient, Shania said, her words cutting through the air like a blade. The studio fell into complete silence. Kelly stared at Shania for what felt like an eternity, her face cycling through expressions of shock, hurt, and finally cold anger. After everything I've accomplished in my career, after all the respect I've shown you and your legacy, you're going to sit here on my own show and tell me that I'm not a real country artist? Kelly said, her voice now barely above a whisper, but somehow more powerful than when she had been shouting. Shania's expression didn't change. I'm telling you what I told Country Weekly 20 years ago. The industry changed, and not everyone was happy about how it changed. Well, congratulations, Shania, Kelly said, taking a step back from her chair. You've finally said what you really think. I hope it was worth it. The tension in the room was so thick, it was almost suffocating. This was television history in the making. You know what the really sad part about this is? I invited you on my show because I genuinely respected you. I thought we could have a conversation about music, about being women in this industry, about how we've both navigated our careers over the years. And we are having that conversation, Shania replied, though there was a slight crack in her previously unwavering composure. Sometimes honest conversations aren't comfortable. Honest? Kelly let out a bitter laugh that echoed through the silent studio. You want to talk about honest? Let me be honest with you, Shania. That interview you did with Country Weekly, the one where you decided to take shots at reality show winners, do you know what that did to me? Do you have any idea what it felt like to have someone I looked up to essentially tell the world that I didn't belong in country music? Shania's jaw tightened, but she didn't respond immediately. Kelly continued, her voice gaining strength with each word. I was 20 years old. Shania, I had just won this incredible opportunity. I was trying to figure out who I was as an artist. And then I wake up one morning to find that one of my childhood idols thinks I took a shortcut and doesn't deserve to be taken seriously. The industry is tough, Shania said quietly. Everyone faces criticism. Everyone faces criticism? Kelly repeated incredulously. That's your response? That's what you're going with, Shania? This wasn't just criticism. This was a coordinated effort to undermine my credibility before I even had a chance to prove myself. I was expressing my opinion about changes in the industry, Shania insisted, but her voice lacked the conviction it had carried just moments before. Your opinion about me? Kelly shot back. Stop hiding behind industry commentary. You were talking about me specifically, and you know it. And you want to know what's really ironic about this whole thing? You're talking about authenticity and paying dues. But let me ask you something. When you married your producer and he helped craft your entire sound and image, was that paying your dues the hard way? The audience collectively inhaled sharply. Kelly had just crossed a line that everyone recognized, bringing up Shania's personal life and her relationship with Mutt Lange. Shania's face went completely white. How dare you? How dare I? What? Point out that your own success wasn't exactly the traditional Nashville route either. You married the man who produced your biggest hits, Shania. Your entire career transformation happened because of that relationship. So, please tell me more about manufactured success and shortcuts. My personal life has nothing to do with this conversation, Shania said, her voice now dangerously low. Doesn't it? Kelly pressed on, unable to stop herself. You're going to lecture me about authenticity when your biggest albums were created, in collaboration with the man you were sleeping with? At least, I won my opportunity in front of millions of people. I didn't win it in someone's bedroom. The studio went dead silent. Several audience members covered their mouths in shock. Shania's hands were shaking now. You have no idea what you're talking about. Don't I? Kelly's voice was steady now, cold and calculated. Mutt Lange turned you from a struggling country singer into an international superstar. He wrote your songs. He produced your albums. He created your image. And then, when he left you for your best friend, your career mysteriously stalled. But sure, let's talk about authentic country music and paying dues. Shania took a step toward Kelly, her face flushed with anger. You know nothing about my marriage, you know nothing about my creative process, and you know nothing about what I went through. I know that you built your career on the back of a relationship, just like you're accusing me of building mine on the back of a television show, Kelly replied, without missing a beat. The only difference is that my shortcut was public, and yours was private. This interview is over, Shania said, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. Kelly crossed her arms. Is it? Because last I checked, this is my show, and you're still my guest. Not anymore, Shania replied, turning toward the side of the stage where her assistant was frantically trying to get the attention of the production crew. Oh, so now, you're just going to walk away? Kelly called after her. Just like you always do when someone challenges your narrative? Shania stopped in her tracks and turned back around. What did you just say? You heard me, Kelly said, her voice carrying clearly across the studio. This is exactly what you did 20 years ago. Instead of supporting new artists, instead of lifting up other women in country music, you tore them down to protect your own position. And now that someone is finally calling you out on it, you're running away. I am not running away from anything, Shania said, walking back toward the interview area. I am choosing not to continue a conversation with someone who thinks it's appropriate to attack my personal life on national television. Like you attacked mine in Country Weekly, Kelly shot back. Like you've been attacking it for 20 years with your comments about reality show winners and manufactured careers. You started this, Shania. I'm just finishing it. Shania stared at Kelly for a long moment, her chest rising and falling with controlled breathing. The entire studio was holding its collective breath. You want to know what I really think? Shania said finally, her voice low. I think you've spent your entire career trying to prove that you belong in country music, and you're still insecure about how you got there. That's why this conversation bothers you so much. That's why you can't let it go. Kelly's face went pale, but she didn't back down. And I think you've spent your entire career trying to convince people that your success was legitimate, when deep down you know that without Mutt Lange, you would still be playing small venues in Canada. The words hung in the air between them like a weapon that couldn't be taken back. The silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity. Shania was the first to move. She took a slow, deliberate step backward, her eyes never leaving Kelly's face. "You know what, Kelly? I came here today thinking we could have a mature conversation about our careers, about music, about the industry we both love. Instead, you decided to ambush me with 20-year-old grievances and then attack my personal life when I defended myself." Kelly's arms were still crossed, her stance defiant despite the obvious emotional toll the confrontation was taking. "I didn't ambush you with anything. I tried to address something that has been hanging between us for 2 decades, and you turned it into a personal attack on my legitimacy as an artist." "Your legitimacy as an artist was never in question," Shania replied, her voice now carrying a weariness that hadn't been there before.